BRB UK. Worse teeth, better accents.
Hello and welcome to episode 487 of BRB UK. He notices as he looks at the agenda and wrote it down incorrectly because that's last week's episode 486 he wrote, and now it's 487. BRB UK, I am Coleman. Hi, I am filling in for Dan this week in the hosting seat because, well, he's got to go off and he's getting ready for a lawsuit against Roblox because I'll tell you what, they may have accidentally shared his sex tape in one of their video games. So we'll have to see if he can come next week and speak to us instead.
Just
probably
by
a poor
process,
phrasing of words.
Just by process of working things out there. Are you saying he's knobbing Kim Kardashian?
Yes.
Okay, don't let Kanye West find out, all right?
Or his wife. Tim, hello.
Hello.
How are you this week, my friend?
I'm okay. Yeah, all right.
Good. It's been a busy old week of video games. Not in playing them, it's mostly about the news. But before we get to the news of video games, we're going to jump straight into it because last week you spoke about WASD, the brand new gaming expo that has come to London. You went to Tobacco Dock to go and sample all the brand new video games that are coming out or are out.
Yep.
And you only got halfway through your list last week, so jump straight into it.
Okay.
What do you want to talk about, Tim?
Yep, my least favourite gaming control method has become my most favourite gaming event of the year, possibly. But yeah, to get into it a little bit more, a few more games to go through. So the first one I'll go through is Shadows of Doubt by Fireshine Games. And yeah, they had a few games there. Quite a few of them looked interesting. I was quite intrigued by Silt and didn't get a chance to have a look at it, but it looked kind of black and white, looked kind of interesting, monochrome kind of thing. But the one that someone else told me to look out for, a friend of the show, Andy, said that Shadows of Doubt was worth having a look at. So I had a quick play on that. And it's a kind of, to reduce it to its almost elevator pitch type thing, it is basically Minecraft detective noir, basically.
Okay.
So kind of voxel graphic style-y in a detective noir setting type thing. So I spent most of the time I was playing the game wandering around an apartment building and then having a look around someone's actual apartment and checking clues. And something seemed to have gone on in the apartment and someone had... there was no sign of anyone, I don't think. I don't think it was a body from memory. But like clearly some shenanigans had gone on in the apartment and it was kind of investigating what had gone on and where the person that was missing from that apartment had ended up to. Simple but effective, You either take to the voxel graphic style or you don't, basically. But it seemed like it had a good underpinning of an interesting kind of detective story. As I said, kind of detective noir kind of story going on. As I said, simple and effective, but seemed good. That's definitely one to look out for going forward. Seemed interesting. And if that kind of ticks boxes for you, then it's definitely worth looking out for. Another one that I got to play was a game called Humankind. Now, Sega was there and they were showing off a few of their kind of more management-y sims. The kind of big headline one was 2 Point Hospital. Oh, sorry, no, actually 2 Point University, I think, isn't it? Because 2 Point Hospital was their previous one.
Yeah, 2 Point Canvas or
2
something
Point
along
Campus,
that.
that's right, yes.
Yeah, something along those lines.
And that looks fine, but just not my style of game, really. So
It's not my tempo.
Yeah, not quite my thing. Like the 2 Point Hospital, everyone really liked, and hospital management sim just doesn't appeal to me at all. And in some way, the 2 Point Campus looks even more Sims-like, just on a university campus rather than in a home type thing. And it's fine. I'm not going to knock anyone that's into it. I'm sure there's plenty of people that sounds interesting to, but that just doesn't really float my boat. Not really interesting. Also, they were showing off the latest Football Manager, which is a great, fantastic game that I absolutely love.
Oh, I love it.
Haven't played for years. I'm trying to get you to play the latest one, or the latest one that's come to Game Pass, just because I think that would be amusing. But that's a game I've literally deliberately stopped playing because otherwise it will take too much of my life off me, basically. And you won't hear me talk about any other game other than football games.
I might pick up
Yep.
one of those, because I know there's more portable versions of Football Manager that aren't as in depth, but that don't have all the features, but are available on a phone or on the Switch. So I might look into one of those, and then I can take Portsmouth into the glory of not going from winning to equalising in the last 5 minutes of extra time. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that I've tried a few of the kind of more stripped down ones. And again, I'm sure there's people that like them and stuff. But for me, Football Manager is definitely the pinnacle of that. And you can also kind of, I think from previous versions, again, I haven't played it for a few years, but from previous versions, you can kind of strip down some of the stuff that you're doing within the game as well. So there's the option to do that within that. So rather than paying for one on mobile, which I think you'd have to do, you're probably better off just trying out the one on Game Pass and then just trying to, get help with it from your assistant manager and all that type of stuff, basically. But anyway, right. The game I did get to play was Humankind, which is kind of, again, distilling it down to its base parts, it's basically Civilization. And it's a 4X
to the untrained eye.
Yeah, it's a 4X game, as they say. So you're kind of exploring and conquering areas and building cities and building civilizations. In this case, you start off as a literal tribe of hunter-gatherers. And in the early parts of your game, you're literally just wandering around areas and literally hunting creatures and getting resources that way. And then fairly early on, you start setting down routes and kind of turning land around the original settlement you have into farmland and zoning it for different purposes and stuff like that. The one thing that I wasn't expecting from this that I thought was very good, that again kind of borrows a kind of thematic direction from Civilization as well, or for me, Civilization Revolution, which I've played a bit more, again, because it's on consoles rather than PC. So I've tended to go with that. And I don't know if this extends into the Civilization series in general, because I haven't played that as much. But yeah, it's very good humoured. Like, there's a lot of humour in there and a lot of like silly kind of nods to like what's going on with your like tribe and the civilization. But I wasn't expecting it to be quite as good humoured as it was. It looks, I don't know if it's just because it's a slightly dry gameplay feel to it.
Right.
But yeah, like it caught me off guard and I ended up laughing my ass off like through most of my playthrough, basically. And I wasn't expecting that from the game at all. I also got to chat to one of the devs quickly on that as well, who gave me a little bit of an insight into things. We ended up talking in and around the game as well, and kind of I kind of gave him the feedback of what I'd said so far, basically. But yeah, it just that was one that wasn't on my radar until I played it at WASD, and now I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have to make some time for that game because that looks fun. Yeah, so again, if you're into Civilization and Civilization Revolution type thing, then it's something that should definitely be on your radar. Again, I'm kind of hoping it might be one that comes to Game Pass so that I can get a bit more time with it and see if that's definitely for me. But from a game that wasn't really on my radar at all, but I was kind of, I was like, okay, that looks fine, whatever. Having played a bit of it and enjoyed it, I'm like, oh, okay, I need to make some time for that game at some point in the future as well. So yeah, that was good. I was pleased with that one.
Okay.
And yeah, going on a slightly different path now. Yeah, there's a game called Die by the Blade by a little studio called Quali. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. I may not be. But yeah, this was a game that I just about heard of beforehand, and it had piqued my interest. So I made a mental note to when I saw that it was at WASD before the show. I made a mental note to actually sit down and go and play this. And this was one where it was quite good that I had someone else with me at the show because it's definitely better in multiplayer as well. But it's a one-on-one, I can't remember the term for it, but kind of, 2D fighter, basically, in a Street Fighter or, kind of Mortal Kombat type sense.
Fighter.
The one thing that this does a little bit differently, I have seen a game, there was a game called One Strike before. I don't know if you saw that previously.
That was on the Switch.
It was on the Switch.
We both bought it.
Yes, and it was very good.
We played it for a good 30 minutes together.
Yeah. Right, cool. I'd forgotten if that was definitely the case. But whereas One Strike was like a literal one hit, one kill, this has that as its kind of core. You can one hit kill someone in Die by the Blade, basically. But that won't necessarily be the case because you can't be kind of gassed out when you're attacking someone. You can't be continuously attacking. You have to have built up, like, I'm not sure if it was stamina, but that type of thing. You have to have some stamina in the tank to be able to hit a one-hit kill, and you have to do a particular move at the right time and a particular button input to produce that result as well, basically. So it's not just any move that connects will kill your opposition in the same way One Strike was, and it's not a guarantee that if you hit someone with a killing move, it will definitely kill them, basically, because you have to have a bit of gas in the tank to be able to execute that move as a death move type thing.
Would you say that this is Bushido Blade for the new age?
Yes. And that's definitely one of their influences, and I definitely think that that's something that the dev that was showing it off like referenced when he was talking about it. But yeah, this one, as I said, it was one I was keen to have a look at, and having played it and really, really enjoyed it, this is one where I'm like, okay, take my money. I'm in. This would be really good for the drinky, fighty nights that we have, especially because you could pass the pad quite quickly in this as well. Like, it could be like one hit and you're done and over type of thing as well. So I do think that makes it like kind of a bit more interesting and fun when you're doing a pass the pad type thing with a variety of mates. I don't know how well this will take to, like, I forgot to ask them if they had any plans for online and stuff like that. And it would have to be like a really stable online connection, which I know is slightly difficult for a small studio making a fighting game. So that's something I'll be keen to see if that's the case. But certainly when you are, playing couch co-op, but playing couch versus, this is going to be a really good game for that as well. So I'm really looking forward to it. I didn't get into playing like all the characters and stuff as well, but it does seem like everyone's got slightly different moves, even though there's like some moves that seem to be like, everyone's got like a killer move that is activated with backwards and Y or whatever it was. I can't remember if that was exactly it, but that type of thing, basically.
This one's coming to PS4 and PS5 as well, and I'm very tempted. I might have to buy 2 copies and see my little brother wants one, because we used to play Bushido Blade when we were kids, and not well. It used to boil down to we just sort of step back to the opposite ends of each screen and then just run at each other with the swords up in the air like that, and just see who loses. And there was no skill to it whatsoever. So I'd like to revisit that as adults and retry that one.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that it makes the fighting game genre a bit more accessible, because it takes away all of the really hard button inputs. There didn't seem to be any like, you have to be doing double fireball circle and backwards punch and 360 degree. Like, it was quite simple button inputs for every character, basically. So I think, this is a game that is was on my radar, has now moved up to, like the center of my radar type of thing. It's definitely something that I'm really keen on and keen to see more of. So yeah, I will definitely be purchasing that game if it doesn't come to any service at some point as well. So yeah, all good. The next game was a game called We Were Here Forever. Now, this was one that I hadn't played before. The person I was at the event with had played, I think, all 3 of the previous games in the series. This is a 4th sequel, basically.
Oh, wow.
Hence the forever, basically. But it's a asymmetric co-op puzzle game, which should float your boat, I think, Mr. Coleman. This was one that This is one that I was like, okay, I'm going to WASD for this one because they didn't have another option. But it was even though you're on a timer and trying to do things quickly, it was, simple enough and not really complicated enough. There wasn't any really sort of complex platforming or anything. It was just a case of communicating. And one of the key aspects of it that you had to kind of get used to, because you're not used to this being the case in video games. And one of the things they had set up is they literally had like the two different sides of one stand so that you had a big division between you, because it's all reliant on communicating what you can see on the screen to the other person. As I said, it's asymmetric multiplayer, and that comes from the fact that you can't see what's on the other person's screen and you're trying to describe it to them. But one of the integral mechanics there that you had to get used to was the fact that it's a push-to-talk system. So it's a bit like having a walkie-talkie. And both me and the person I was with kept on forgetting that. So we kept on talking over each other. And then you don't realize that the other person hasn't heard the bit of information that you've relayed to them. And they don't realize that you haven't heard the thing that they relayed to you. So there's a bit of a back and forth with like making sure that you are like, did you hear what I just said type of thing, and kind of making sure that you are actually communicating effectively.
What was there was a Switch game that we were talking about. We were meant to pick it up and never got round to it. And the idea was it was you communicating to each other to solve puzzles and get through a story.
Yes.
But there was no online. The game would...
Yes, I did an interview for it and I've forgotten the name of it, unfortunately. It Takes Two.
It's an interview that didn't go out because the audio was balked.
Yeah, which was a real shame because
I can't remember what that game was.
It had an asymmetric review type thing. But yeah, anyway, I'm trying to think. If you remember or can Google and find out, let me know. But yeah, it's kind of in that ilk, except for this was a slightly different graphical style. I'm trying to think what it reminded me of. It reminded me of the old kind of... and I can't remember the name of the actual game again, which is doing really well for an audio podcast, I think. But it was the Alice in Wonderland style games, the American McGee ones, I think, basically. And yeah, it's kind of, not quite cel-shaded look to it, but a cartoony kind of heavy outlined look. And yeah, basically the gameplay is, in the demo that we had, we're all in... Myself and the person I was playing with were in different rooms, and at the center of those rooms was a particular object. And then I could see symbols that were on the outskirts of the room that the other person was in, and they could see symbols that were on the outskirts of my room, and that helped us rotate the room to then be able to get to a different room that we could then continue the puzzle, basically. And it was a cascade of those type of things. So it was like, right, I've moved to this room now, and you need to rotate the room you're in so it lines up with that door so that you can go to the next room, and then you're in the different objects. And they were like random objects like horns and just random different objects that were at the center of the room, like a playing card or something else. And so, yeah, it was like, okay, if you move that, then you can get to the playing card room. And then from that room, you can tell me where to go next, sort of thing. And yeah, so it was all that type of stuff. But yeah, that seemed quite good. As I said, the person I was with had played all three of the previous games and really liked them. And this one is apparently sort of bigger and longer than the other games that they've gone so far. So, yeah, like if that sounds interesting to you, it's made by Total Mayhem Games. The previous three games, I believe, are out now already, and this one's coming soon, basically. So, yeah, one to look out for in the future, especially if you're into asymmetrical co-op games. Did you manage to find that one that we had before, or have you not had any success?
I could not. I will keep looking.
Okay.
In the background. I'm sure I'll find it at some point.
Well, the next game is one that you wanted to hear about, Mr. Coleman. So, yes.
Yes, I really wanted to hear about this.
Yes.
This is an idea that has been done many, many times and always never quite works. So I'm interested to see how this goes.
Right. So this is a game called Arcade Paradise. And the idea is that you're taking over a laundromat, not an arcade, a laundromat. But it's a laundromat that you then build a secret arcade in the background of in like a back room, and you've got an arcade there, sort of thing. And you are adding various different arcade machines to kind of build it up and make it more attractive to people, so you earn more money. The plus side to that is that you also get to play the arcade machines. Now, it's one of those things where I really like the idea, and I'm still curious to see the final product. But basically, we had it so it's fairly late on in the game, so I had access to a bevy of arcade machines, which possibly meant that I had too much choice, almost kind of thing. But it was a kind of, I'm at an event where I'm playing lots of little games, and then I get into a game that has lots of little games to play. And I'm like, it's a game overload type of thing. I didn't love it as much as I was hoping to. The arcade games themselves, I don't know if I just was a bit unlucky with some of the ones that I played. But one of them, like the person that was showing me the game wasn't the developer, they were the PR person. And they said, oh yeah, this is the dev's favorite game. And I was like, oh. Oh, that's not good.
That could be their favorite in terms of like technical achievement or something, though, rather than the actual game itself.
Yes.
Devs are weird.
Yeah, and I'm still like, I like the theme of the game and I like the ideas behind it and stuff. So I'm still kind of keen to see if it actually plays out. By Wired Productions, or I think they're the publisher rather than the developer, possibly.
They're the publisher.
I'm slightly less keen than I was having played it, but I'm still curious to see how it comes out in the wash, if you excuse the laundromat pun. And yeah,
I don't.
And
I do not excuse the laundromat pun.
And to see how it plays out generally in terms of, was I just a bit unlucky with some of the arcade games that I played? But it's one of those things where I kind of wish that you could kind of see the game that they were referencing, but at the same time, I almost like there was an Outrun style game type of thing and stuff like that. And I don't know, I almost wish it was more its own thing or more exactly like the thing that it's aping kind of thing. It was a halfway house in between where it's like, oh yeah, you remind me of this game, but then you don't really exactly play like that game type of. I would almost like it was rather exactly Outrun with a few comedy twists on it or something, or it was completely its own thing, because it was too reminiscent without being as good as the thing it was referencing. So all it made me do was go, oh yeah, I should probably go back and play Outrun sometime. It didn't make me think, oh yeah, I really like this game. And as I said, I'm still keen to see
some Outrun.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm still keen to see if it all kind of works out in the end. But yeah, a bit less keen than I was going in, possibly. So yeah. But yeah, I will still keep an eye out for it. Again, if it comes to say Game Pass or something, I would definitely play it. I'm not sure I'd pick this one up unless it was in a sale on the cheap type of thing. If I had to pay for it, basically. And one game that I forgot I played until I added it to the list at the last minute, but I saw a thing about it this week and went, oh yeah, I played that at WASD as well. So who knows, there could be a few other games that I completely forgot about playing. But yeah, I did say last week that I didn't play any Team 17 games, and I saw that this was one of their games. I was like, oh, I didn't know that either. So yeah, correction on last week. I did play a game from Team 17, but I found that area quite late in the day, and I think this was the only one I played. But yeah, a game called Thymesia. Yeah, This should be of interest to people that like Souls-like games, basically. Although it's a bit less like Soul games, Souls-like in general, and a bit less like Elden Ring, and a bit more like Bloodborne, but Bloodborne with a plague element to it. So your main character's wearing one of those big, long plague masks, long-nosed doctor plague mask things. And
I think those are available in Bloodborne as well.
Yeah, quite possibly. And it's, it's really hard coming from a like really heavily well-polished Elden Ring and then playing a clone of that type game that's made on a much smaller budget. I am still interested in this game. Like, it's again, I'm not sure that I'd necessarily run out and spend like a full £60 on it, but I'm not expecting it to be a full price game. So I'm a bit more forgiving of it, possibly. But yeah, like if you like Souls-like games and, the plague element sounds interesting to you, it's definitely doing some interesting things. It's pretty much of the same sort of ilk of going for a difficult game where you're, striving to get to the next checkpoint to get to safety kind of thing. It's, third-person action hack and slash, that you would expect from a Souls-like game. But as I said, with a plague theme to it, and I think that kind of plays in well to like some of the central mechanics and some of what's going on in the game, sort of thing. So yeah, like just thought I'd mention it because I think there are plenty of people, especially with anyone that's been converted to Souls-like stuff from Elden Ring stuff. But I would say even more so if you like Bloodborne more than you like the rest of them. This is definitely one to put on your radar, basically. So
that's WASD in a nutshell, or at least the games that you have played over the last 2 weeks we've been talking about.
And I was going to say that the only other thing I was going to give a game of the show out, basically. So I think my overall game of the show, it's tight between a few games, but I think I'm going to have to give it to Die by the Blade, just because I really, really liked that, and I'm really looking forward to that now that that's coming out. Cult of the Lamb I quite like, and Trek to Yomi I quite like as well, so they were definite contenders, but just pipped to the post by Die by the Blade gets my game of the show, so yeah.
Well, I've got a feeling Die by the Blade will be the one to buy, whereas the other two titles will be out on Game Pass most likely. Yeah. So it's good to have a game of the show that you're looking forward to actually picking up yourself.
Yeah. I mean, that's not to say I don't know that this one definitely isn't coming to Game Pass. I think it would be a good fit for that because then it gets to a wider audience as well, possibly. But yeah, I won't be unhappy to pay for this game, which is always a good way of recommending things, I think, basically. I will also definitely be possibly picking up Power Wash Simulator, which I didn't think would be a thing.
Yes.
When that comes to consoles as well, I'll definitely be interested in that. But as I said, yeah, I think Die by the Blade just about pips everything else to the post because I really enjoyed it and I'm really looking forward to that game. And I think that's top of my list now. Basically.
Did you see the video background that I made specially for last week's episode?
Yes, I did.
WASD.
It distracted me from our faces, which is no bad thing. That can't be a bad thing for anyone.
It was a very Tim-centric episode last week where you got the power washing background and you also got Defenders of the Earth as an outro. And the week before you were on the cover, so it's a very Tim show, this one.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I was the one that went to the event, so you should all come next year.
Exactly. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, I've just been a bit paranoid about the whole, like, I can go to the cinema, I can go to the supermarket, all those kind of things, wear my mask, but the big crowds, close together, that's a different nature of the beast.
For me, I'd rather go to one of these events than the cinema, because the cinema, you could be trapped behind a big, or even worse, in front of a big group of people and sat there for 2 hours.
I know.
With them breathing all over you.
I'll put it this way. I'll put it this way, Tim. I've been to the cinema every weekend since I've been allowed, basically. Yeah. And I've not been in a single packed screening. Yeah. So that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, I think Batman was the biggest crowd that I've sat with, and it wasn't huge. And that was on like the night after opening. But I still maybe Spider-Man. Spider-Man was big as well.
I want to see Spider-Man too. I still haven't seen it. I've had so much of it spoiled because everyone assumes that it's okay to spoil things, but I think I'm going to love that film.
We'll have a trip. Look, I'll take you to my dead ass cinema and we'll go watch those films.
Yes.
Maybe stagger them though, because Batman's long.
Yeah, long ass Batman.
Yeah. Anywho, it's not about Batman.
Yes,
it's about Star Wars. Tim.
Oh, this is a game I'm very keen to hear about, Mr. Coleman.
As I said to you last week off mic, because I was going to speak about this if we had time. Lo and behold, we didn't. But Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga, which initially I thought, and a lot of people would probably think, this is a collection of the Star Wars Lego games that have come before, plus the Force Awakens game that came out on the PS4, and then 2 new ones added in to go, here you go, 1 to 9. This is not. Yeah. This is a complete brand new game of all those films all merged into one, wrapped in adorable Lego stylings. And I'm not the biggest fan of the Lego games. I think they're very simplistic. They're clearly made for a much younger demographic than myself. I get very bored playing those games. The only one that I've really gotten into ever is Lego Marvel Superheroes, which I found a very fun co-op game, and it was because of the story and the voice acting and the way things played out. That was the one I really enjoyed, but I will admit that was more kind of lots of geeky stuff that a massive Marvel fan of comics and films at the time, and the outside films that outside the MCU and all that kind of stuff all kind of merged together. I think that was more my enjoyment than the actual game itself, because I tried to replay it quite recently actually.
Yeah. And
I just can't keep going with it. I get very bored. I picked up Marvel Lego Superheroes 2, which I've been looking forward to for a very long time, and then I just couldn't connect with it anymore.
I kind of fell off the Lego games in general. Like I just overdosed on them a bit, I think. But this is getting really good reviews, so
yeah, I like the idea more than the actual game themselves. You know, I think these are more enjoyable. Much like when we talk to Kev, he goes, "Telltale games." I'll go, "Oh, I love this Telltale game." And he goes, "Yeah, I just watch them all on YouTube, and I never need to play the game." That's kind of how I feel about the Lego games, and I feel they've got worse as well, because what they used to do is they'd have cutscenes where they were reenacting a Star Wars film, an Indiana Jones, or something like that. And it was kind of the Marcel role where they're doing the everything's silent and it's all pointing to things, and that kind of style, and that worked.
Yeah,
and then
had its own humor that kind of separated it from the films a bit more. No?
Yeah, and then what they started doing is making games that weren't necessarily based on films, like the Lego Batman type game. So they're based on a property but not the film. So then they have to write brand new jokes. They have to do voice acting, and that worked. Then they decided at some point to go, we're going to just take audio from a film, and it's going to sound horrible and tinny because we've got to take all the effects out because they're going to clash with our effects. And it just didn't work. And there was Lego Marvel Avengers, Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, all those types of games. And I really felt that was a kind of low point for the series. And then they went back to making their own stories. This time, back to Star Wars. What they've done this time is they've lovingly recreated everything. They got brand new voice actors in. Some are from the films, some are replacement voice actors. They just redid all the lines and condensed everything. And it's the most streamlined way you can play Star Wars, because they'll condense several scenes into one scene, so it's quickly done. They do the whole thing where, for instance, if you go to Phantom Menace, and you get up to the point in the film where you see Watto and Anakin and Padme, and everyone's all together, and then they leave the Watto's workshop and they go to Annie's Shmi's house and they have dinner, and then they go back to Watto, and then you talk about pod racing and do the bet. All that one scene. They just meet. They all offhand conversation. It works really, really well, and some would probably agree that for the later films and for the prequels, that is a really good way of going through those without having to watch them.
I have a question, Mr. Coleman.
It makes it much more quicker. Yes.
Do you get to pod race? Is there actual pod race?
There is actual pod racing, and that's the big thing about this. So what the previous games tend to be, this is pod racing. I'll try spinning. That's a neat trick. What they tend to do, and I kind of liken this to, because the last Lego game we spoke about on the show was, you played the Force Awakens game for PS4, I believe. Okay. And this kind of takes some similar traits from that game for this one as well. So previously the titles were kind of sort of platformer, sort of brawler type games, very simplistic, easy enough for a child to pick up. This is a mix of, it has that, but it's more like third person, over the shoulder. It's a shooter, it's a brawler, it's a flight simulator, it's a racer, and merges all this stuff in. And it is very simplistic ways of doing these things, but there's enough variety there to make it enjoyable for you. The other thing about this as well is, when you start playing the game, you have the options of starting each of the trilogies. So the prequels, the originals, and the sequels. But the caveat is, if you can decide which of those trilogies you want to play, but you have to start from the first episode of each of those. And you can't...
Yeah, can't just jump in on Empire Strikes Back, basically.
Exactly. So I went, even if I'm watching the films, I start with I think most people do, you start with the original trilogy, you go to the prequels, you go to the sequels. Playing the game, though, prequels, originals, sequels. You can go episode 1 to 9, and it works very well in that way. Because, again, everything's condensed. They know that these were made after these films, so they know when something's going to happen. They can make cheeky little fun about something happening previous. And again, they did that with the original game as well. They had to convey to no, I am your father, without any dialogue at all. And it's just Vader pointing to a photograph of him with Padme and, stuff like that. But this time it's done with voice acting, and it works really well. I've not beaten the full story yet. A lot of people have. I've been a bit busy lately. I've got through all the prequels. I'm halfway through I'm halfway through Empire Strikes Back at the moment, and so hopefully I'll have this done.
I have another question, Mr. Coleman.
Yes?
How long is each film then in gaming terms?
A couple of hours, I'd say.
Okay.
It depends how much you want to do, because Lego games are weird. If you just blast through and go point A to B to C and just get through to the end, it's really quick. But if you do the side stories and try to unlock characters and all this kind of stuff, 100% completion of these games it takes a ridiculously long time.
Yeah.
And I have been running through as quick as I can because I want to talk about it on the show. But I want to go back and do the free play mode and do more of the side missions and stuff, because that stuff does look fun in a kind of let's scratch an itch for completionist's sake rather than for a challenge sake, because this is something you can play with kids. This is a family game, if there ever was one. But they have made it more enjoyable than previous games. And when you play it, it's things like you could go through and play like you previously played. Just keep mashing the square button to attack and break things down and circle to build them up again. And that's how you play the game. However, it is a brawler that has parry systems and combos and different. It's just something you haven't seen in the Lego games before, and it works really well. So you could play it on a simplistic level like a child, but you could get into it a bit more and have more fun with it, and it works really well for that. It's the most in-depth Lego game they have ever made, I think. And and you can see just how much detail and attention to detail has gone into this, in not just the license and recreating and stuff, but just the overall gameplay itself and how fun it is. Now, that does come with an incredible caveat, because not being covered as much as it has been through other studios, but the reason you may look at a game like this and go, wow, how did they make a game so amazing like this? This is the most amazing Lego game I played. TT Games did get called out on quite heavy crunch abuse, as it would seem, and like a really big report came out on this, and it didn't seem to get picked up by as many publishers as you would expect it to, but got a lot of very high scores across the board. So I don't know what's going up with that, but Don't
want to be crunching on Lego, like stepping on Lego's bad enough.
No,
like
definitely
crunching on Lego, not good.
It's one of those weird things where they go, oh, there's a heavy crunch in Bethesda. Yeah, I could see that. There's heavy crunch in Rockstar Games. Yeah, I could totally see that. There's heavy crunch in Lego. What?
Yeah. Hey?
Okay, I'd expect that to be a happier, more childlike place, but okay, I guess, it takes all sorts. But still, a very good game. Unfortunately, it's kind of marred by the goings-on behind the scenes, which, again, you can read reports of if you go look up. But if you like Lego games, or if you like the idea of Lego games and just found them very simplistic so you didn't get into them, this would be a recommend from me. It is genuinely, I can't believe I'm saying this, this is genuinely one of the best games I've played this year.
Oh, is that because you haven't played Elden Ring?
I have played Elden Ring. I played Elden Ring before you started playing Elden Ring. What a weird year where my current fave 3 are Elden Ring, WWE 2K22, and Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga. I did not see that coming. I had no intention to pick this up, but so many very trustworthy reviewers that I know have gone, this is amazing. And I know, because I know guys that play Lego games and do a lot of Lego content and build Lego and stuff. And they've kind of sold me on games before, going, this is amazing, you have to play this game. And I try it out and go, this is so goddamn boring. But this is the one that the Lego enthusiasts haven't been selling me on. It's been the actual gamer enthusiasts selling me on. And I've gone, oh, this is really good. So yeah, especially if you got kids, go pick this up. Definitely have a playthrough. And I don't know who I'd be recommending that to, because I know a lot of our listeners that have kids that I follow on Twitter, they've already bought this for their kids, or in a couple of cases where they put it in quotes, I bought this for the kids, and now they're playing it all the time. And it's really good. It is that damn good.
Been playing on PS5, I believe, yeah?
Yeah, I've been playing it on PS5. Interestingly as well, mostly not on the console itself. I've been playing on my phone using the PS Play app.
I think it's a good game for that, though, no?
Yeah, it works really well. Not so much on the tube, because every now and then I'll be in a firefight with stormtroopers and then I'll lose connection and it will start pixelating all over the place. And I don't know what's going on. And then it'll come back and, I'm in bits on the floor. But it's a very forgiving game if you die in the game. If you die in the Lego world, you don't die in the real world, so it's fine. We should talk about some news, Tim.
We should.
And before we get to the actual all the headlines, you wanted to drop in very quickly about, and I know this is something that's been covered before, because PlayStation originally patented the idea of dropping adverts into games, which has been tried in some forms in the past. Activision, big proprietor of this, using their version of an MMA game and Spider-Man games and stuff we've seen. So PlayStation patented an idea of doing this. It didn't get followed through. There was a lot of backlash about it, and now Xbox have announced that they're going to be doing this Q3, I think. Yeah. They're giving the creators of games, of free-to-play games, to add advertising to their games, which they're not going to take a cut from, apparently, as of yet. That might change in the future, you don't know.
Yeah.
But to help monetize shortly after
and stuff. But yeah.
And shortly after, and you have to have the idea that this is, everyone knows what's going on behind the scenes, and they know when something's going to drop. So this wasn't a spur of the moment. PlayStation went, we patented a thing. The patents run out, and Xbox went, we want to do a thing. And then PlayStation went, no, that's our thing. We want to do that thing too. But in the same, almost a couple of days after, PlayStation went, we're also going to be looking at the whole idea of adding advertising into free-to-play games.
And, I can understand the thinking of it. And, for me, there are terrible examples of this that we definitely want to avoid. You definitely don't want you just finished a game. Here, watch an advert before you get another game, or the mobile version of
very mobile gaming,
or the mobile version of, instead of a microtransaction, just watch this advert and then you'll get a free coin in the game that you're playing or whatever. And I don't want that to come in. Where I think there is scope for this in a better sense is to have adverts that are integrated into not necessarily just real-world settings, but I think it's easier to explain my thinking in a real-world setting example. So, for example, like Burnout, I think, had stuff before, possibly, where it had the billboards, and you're having billboards that have proper adverts on them, and they are something that you go and find in the world. Now, that, I think, is fine.
And smash.
I think, you can smash them through them and stuff like that. But I actually think there is scope for doing that. Okay, there's something, and I think you mentioned particularly, was it Ghostwire Tokyo? You mentioned particularly where they had all the products and stuff they designed and stuff like that. And there is some niceness to that. But at the same time, some developer has had to spend time and money actually developing those ideas and then putting them into practice to put them into the game. And it actually almost makes more sense for someone like, say, Mars or something to come along and just go, right, put all of our Snickers, and we're particularly going with the Snickers peanut butter this week or whatever, so put that front and center in the shop in your game. And
you say that. Yeah. You say that, and only because you mentioned Mars and Snickers. Yeah. And this is a worry of mine, because if you're putting this in a free-to-play game, I'm okay with that. Yeah. But and as we have seen with many, many games companies, as soon as you start doing something free to play and it becomes accepted, they go, oh, well, we'll just stick that in a full price game.
Yes.
And this is something that got picked up a few years ago, because 2K Games went, hey, in our WWE game, we're going to start selling advertising space on achievements.
Yeah.
As well as other things within the game. And Snickers, they've been a big advertiser for WWE and a sponsor for WWE for a very long time in some way or another. And, yeah, they've been and weirdly when this got picked up and started getting circulated on Kotaku and Polygon and all those types of sites, that they went, hey, this is disgusting. They're advertising on achievements now. But they've been doing this for 4 years, and you've just noticed. I noticed because I play all of these stupid games. But they do Snickers advertising in lots of different ways, and we've seen it in like Guitar Hero. Guitar Hero 3 had Lynx commercials embedded into them in playable items and things, or Mercedes in Mario Kart.
And Football Manager have done this in a reasonable way in the past, because they've had lots of like adverts for, say, War Child and other charity-based things that they have on the billboards at football grounds, which makes sense because there are adverts on those billboards in real life type thing. And I just think there is some scope for weaving them into the game in a way that isn't as egregious. I mean, like, we've seen stuff like, was it Energizer batteries that were in Alan Wake originally and stuff like that? The only problem with this becomes when...
They've now been taken out.
Yeah, that's the thing. The only problem with this when in subsequent versions of the game, and I believe recently, was it Monster that was advertised in...
Oh, Death Stranding.
And then that's been taken out in the director's cut and stuff like that. And it's just, I think it creates its own problem. But I also think there is scope for not only alleviating the costs to developers of creating products to put in their world, but then there is the scope to actually, like, have advertising that makes sense, that's not entirely out of place in the world. But as I said, it does then create other problems in terms of the preservation of that video game going forward. Like, the people that play Death Stranding don't get the same experience that they did at launch because Monster's no longer in it and stuff like that. But then you see Monster Energy is all over like Supercross games and stuff like that because they are like the principal sponsor, I think, of that in real life as well. So, and like Red Bull's another one where you see all over, in-game video cars and stuff like that because they are a real-world sponsor as well. So, I think it can get a bit funny, but as long as the people doing the advertising do give it in perpetuity and say, no, we want our advert in there forever, then I think that's okay. I think you get into slightly sticky areas when it's only for a certain period of time, because then you are changing the experience for future generations and it gets a bit weird. But yeah, I just want to say, I think there is some scope for weaving that into the game naturally and that being a good thing for all parties involved, and it actually making a real world game look more real. Because I think it sometimes takes you out of the experience to see things that aren't, a product that you'd see in the real world, basically. So, yeah, I just think that's something that could be done well if it's handled correctly.
Yeah, I remember one of the ones, the big one I remember people complaining about was, I think that was last year or the year before. It was advertisements for season 2 of The Boys that were just plastered all over UFC 4, and but they were done like an actual television broadcast. So before the match starts, and just quick flash it up on screen. Go, season 2 brought to you by season 2 of The Boys, and then it goes off. And a lot of people complained about that, and I think they took them out or they lessened the ads or something like that. And then the other one I remember, a lot of people had their goat up about.
Had their goat up.
Yeah, that's something I like to say. Spider-Man Web of Shadows, I think it was. Right. A lot of people were complaining about advertisements in-game because they have billboards, which if you were playing the game offline would be for Stark Industries, in-universe type things. But if you were playing while you were collected online, then you were getting advertisements for The Watchmen, the movie that had just come out. However, I don't think those were included in the UK version, so I didn't know what everyone was moaning about. I just had Marvel in-universe adverts at the time, and with that game now being completely delisted, you play through without any issue at all if you can get a copy. But yeah, I think the thing is, it's again, I don't want that level of the advertising, wait 5 seconds, wait 20 seconds, because
Yes,
they get worse and worse.
But I mean,
Yeah.
but product placement is an accepted thing in like Hollywood movies now. Like it's a given thing in a lot of movies, and that can be quite egregious at times, but it can also be quite funnily handled. Like I remember Xbox being in one of the Transformer movies, and that being quite a funny little nod.
It made the noise and turned into a little killer robot. Yeah. It was funny.
But I think there are ways and means of doing like product placement type things in video games that I'm surprised haven't been more heavily pushed in the past, and I could see that going forward. And I don't know about you, I'd much prefer that to I'd much prefer an in-game product placement thing to you have to wait 30 seconds to play the rest of your game. Like that's just not good for me, basically. Oh
no, totally. And in some cases of product placement can lend well to world building in some forms. If you've not got, one of the best examples I can think of is The Getaway on the PlayStation 2. And I remember being impressed with this at the time because, it was seen as, when it was coming out, an English version of Grand Theft Auto, set in real London, not set in fictional London, not set in London or, something random like San Andreas, one of those kind of rock starry type things. So, but then when you were playing the game, I remember there was a shootout in a warehouse of some kind, and you were taking cover against crates, and the crates had shrink wrap cans of Foster's and Carlsberg and real world products. Yeah. And I didn't see that as going, oh my God, a product placement in there. I was like, wow, it's like the real world with real things in it. Yes. It's not just loads of cans that say beer.
But I mean, look, it can be good in movies. It can be bad in movies. I don't know about you. I've pretty much hated like BMW being James Bond car, basically. Like, no, that's not a James Bond car. No. So like, yeah, it can.
Well, Tony Stark seems to drive a lot of Audis.
Yes, and stuff
like that. You've ever noticed?
Yeah, but yeah, I do think there is scope for doing that well, and I can see them aping Hollywood a bit more, and I prefer them to do that. I prefer them to ape Hollywood product placement than to ape mobile go watch an advert for 30 seconds to earn some in-game currency type stuff. Like
yeah. If we get a couple of Carlsberg trucks in Spider-Man, I'm fine with that. Yeah, it's just like the film.
yeah. And as I said, I think that gives it a more real-world grounding anyway in a lot of cases. So that could be good.
We'll see what happens going forward. We'll have to gloss over the rest of the headlines quite a bit. I didn't want to go over this one too much because, again, it's been covered to death in the news at the moment. But Rockstar, they brought out GTA 5 on the PS5, on the Xbox Series S and X, new updated versions of the game, so 60 frames a second and all this good shiny 4K goodness, and lots of other improvements with the game. And over time, people have started to realize that there have been changes made to the game in what has been described as harmful stereotypes of transgendered people. This was first reported by Ars Technica, and they've noted that so one of the big changes was there was a background item in the arcades which was called Captain's Space Toy with interchangeable genitalia, and it was a very offensive looking figurine. So that's been cut. I get that. It still says Captain Spaceport Toy, but it's a figurine of a man in a suit, I think. The other one, which I'm not so sure on, but okay, I'll go with it. They've removed, I believe in the outside the strip clubs, drag queens would be summoned every now and then, which they call drag queens. But the argument has been that they don't look like drag queens. They look like transgendered people because if you look at a drag queen, the colors and all this kind of stuff, it's part of a drag act. Whereas these are just men that are wearing women's clothes and look very much like women wearing women's clothes. So those have been, I think they don't summon from that area now, and they are lessened in their appearance. And certain conversations have been taken out as well that could be seen as transphobic as well. Okay. I see a lot of people up in arms about this, censorship of art and all this kind of stuff. One big example I've seen about this is, South Park don't get censored for their things. And GTA is basically the South Park of video games. I say it's Rockstar's toys. Let them
Yeah.
do what the hell they want with them.
And
Don't care.
They don't need to be punching down. Like, there's enough like well-structured humor in there that is good, and like they just don't need to be doing this, basically. Also, South Park is a funny example for me, because a lot of people, South Park is very good at what it does, but what it does is very often misinterpreted by a wider audience, unfortunately.
Yes.
And that is that they are often shining a light on something and going, ha 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 ha, ha, look at this thing. But what they're actually saying is like the much deeper thought behind it that often goes over the head of a lot of the wider audience type of thing. So I think that's I quite like South Park, and I think it is quite intelligent. I think some of its intelligence is often lost on some of its audience, unfortunately.
Yeah. And as well, much like any kind of long-running comedy series as well, there are certain issues that happen with age. You know, something that's totally acceptable to say at one point then isn't acceptable even by a couple of months down the road, let alone how long's it been going? What, 20 years, 25 years?
Yes,
stupid like that?
And there are some things with GTA 5 where I think time and space apart, and this is one of the things with it being having such a long tail, and it, you know, I think, what is it? It's a third or fourth different generation it's on now, basically. Third. And so, like, it's had such a long tail that it is worth going back and reanalyzing some of that humor and seeing if it needs updating a little bit and doing so. And I think this is a hot button issue over the last few years. So I think there are some things that definitely were worth addressing. And it seems like, as I said, they're just not looking to punch down. They don't need to do that. They are better than that. And I think they are proving that by updating it to make these changes.
Yeah. I mean, this is so a lot of, again, there seems to be more controversy over the editing of transphobic type materials in this version of the game. Whereas back in 2015 on the PS4 and Xbox One versions of the game, and PC, I'm assuming as well, there was the Confederate flag was edited out of the trailer park sections of the game. And I've got to be honest, I didn't know there was any controversy there. I didn't hear anyone moaning about it, and I didn't know it happened. I didn't even remember there was a Confederate flag in that game. So move on.
They don't take our flag.
They don't take my flag. I'm just a fan of Dukes of Hazzard. Was it a flag in the... Yeah.
Yes, it was on the top of the General Lee, unfortunately. Good. But yeah.
I'm just having a conversation with myself, don't worry.
Yes, that's fine.
Right, moving on. Amy Hennig is back in the seat of a Star Wars game.
Yeah!
And meaning that the last time we heard about Amy Hennig with the lucrative Star Wars license, she was making a title with Visceral Games, heading up what I think was called Project Ragtag for EA. And that was cancelled, and apparently that game assets were lifted and redistributed into other titles, so which we don't know what they were. I'm assuming Battlefront 2 and Jedi Fallen Order, most likely. Now, Amy Hennig is working on a new Star Wars title, and she's doing it with Skydance New Media this time.
A lot of people seem to report this without reporting the fact that she's already working on a Marvel game. So I assume, like, it's something...
Also at Skydance.
Yeah, also the same studio. But, I mean, look, this is really good news. She's, worked on some, like, really good titles. She worked on the better Uncharted's, and they've arguably gone a bit downhill since she left, possibly. And... I think 2 was the highlight, is the high point of the series for me. So
I would love to see what 4 would have been like with her in the driving seat, rather than leaving partway through. Yeah, with the whole Alan Tudyk being there instead of Troy Baker, all that stuff.
Yeah, and stuff like that. But yeah, like, sort of taking that with a slight pinch of salt. But generally, I'm really keen to see her approach to both a Marvel game and a Star Wars game. Like, this is definitely really good news. I'm hoping it's not sort of bad news on the Marvel side of things, that hasn't, like, hit a snag or has got tied up. I'm hoping this is something where she can do the kind of head level direction of story and stuff like that, and then other people can pick up the can from her and kind of run with it and or baton, I should have said, if I'm going with the run with it analogy. But yeah, kind of
it works.
Yeah, kind of pick that up and carry that on, and she can kind of oversee both projects. From what I know of her involvement,
take the
in
lightsaber and run with it.
Well, there you go. And Jedi run with it. Anyway, but yeah, there's Kessel run. That's what we should have gone with.
Kessel run
with it. Anyway, I definitely think this.
We're workshopping this. Bear with us, listeners.
Right, yeah, we're workshopping this as we go. See, this is why we don't get to write Star Wars games, Coleman. Even though we're massive Star Wars and Marvel fans, we don't get to write them because it takes us a bit to get to the thing. Like, we're not as good. But yeah, this is definitely good news in general. I'm definitely really looking forward to getting more details on both of these projects. So yes, hurry up and make them, please.
Moving on, and one you should be excited about, Tim,
yes,
because Sega are reportedly working on some big budget reboots of a few of their titles because they are looking to use some existing IPs in new and very different ways.
About bloody time.
And two of those names that are being bandied about are Crazy Taxi, yeah. And also one that you've been screaming out for, Jet Set Radio.
Yes, please do that. Like, you've been sitting on these for far too long. Without going too much into this, because again, it's been covered by a lot of people, but I'm very glad that these are things that are coming back. What other Sega properties would you like to see them do this with, Mr. Coleman?
Shenmue. Yeah, I have to say this comes with quite a big caveat. The idea is to generate reoccurring revenue and build online communities. And I think there's 5 titles they're looking at. We only know about the 2, if true. Crazy Taxi and Jet Set Radio. One of the other ones touted to be a big first-person shooter on the kind of level of Fortnite, which I don't know if actually on the level of Fortnite or that's just wording that is being used by Bloomberg because their audience aren't really gamers usually.
Bring back Power Stone, please. Thank you.
Oh, was that Sega? I thought it was Capcom.
It might be Capcom, but it was on the Dreamcast, so I always associate it with Sega. So yeah, but that would be a good one. Do that.
I'm sure there are loads of titles I'm not thinking.
Do better than they did with
Alien Stone.
Do better than they did with House of the Dead remake, please, because they just had brought that out to the Switch, and apparently that is atrocious. Like, why aren't they bringing all of their light gun games, House of the Dead and House of the Dead Overkill particularly, please, to VR? Why aren't they doing that? They should all be bringing all their light gun games to VR because that is the environment where light gun games will thrive, please. Please, someone at Sega, listen and do that properly, please.
Apparently with the Switch, the reason being is the Switch itself. The best way you can play House of the Dead is literally downloading the arcade emulator and running it on a PC, but then you're missing out on the light gun stuff, which you can get done through some jiggery pokery in some form.
Yeah, I've seen
third-party hardware. It's going to be very expensive to set up.
Yeah.
But that's the best way you can play that game and not on the Switch. However, that's meant to come to other consoles now, like more modern consoles outside the Switch, so
maybe they're all keeping them
perform better
in their back pocket for PSVR 2. That's what I'm kind of hoping for. But they should all be on MetaQuest and they should all be on PSVR. But hey. Maybe
there's a better version of that game coming to Xbox Series X and PS5. We'll have to see when they come out. But yeah. Apparently this secret first-person shooter super game that is coming from Sega, though, they are looking to generate £600 million over its lifetime. So that's the kind of level we're looking at with these new bringing back IPs for super online games.
Trying to think of a Sega shooter. What was the one was the Club Sega?
I want to say yes. I might say yes. I'll say yes.
Okay.
Why not?
Say yes. Well, let's go with one. But I can't think of a first-person shooter that was made by Sega. Are you?
No, it's up my head. I mean, they probably got shooters out. Eternal Champions. Let's have a new version of Eternal Champions. Altered Beast. There we go. I'm bringing up the old school.
I'm trying to remember what other games on Dreamcast were Sega was ready to
Golden
rumble
Axe.
boxing. Was that them?
No, that's not Sega.
No.
Is it?
I don't know. That's why I was asking.
I think that's Midway.
I think you could be right.
Possibly.
That sounds
possibly.
Who owns them now?
Last bit. You're going to love this one. So Warner Bros. Have the license to make a Minecraft movie, which has been reported on several times in the past. Unfortunately, that license is set to expire in January 2023, meaning that the studio's got to get a wiggle on and make a movie if they don't want to lose that license, and hurry up. So according to the Ankler, Warner Brothers they're in talks to star Jason Momoa, him of Aquaman and Game of Thrones. Was he in Game of Thrones?
I'm going to go with, yeah. Oh, yeah. He was, wasn't he? Yeah, that's yeah. He was
Targaryen.
Khaleesi's husband.
So that's weird.
Yeah, definitely weird.
I don't know what that looks like, but apparently the film's going to be directed by Jared Hess, who made Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre.
So we're guessing this is going to be a
high and a low.
Yeah, we're guessing this is going to be like comedy action type film. Are we thinking
maybe
along the lines of like Rock in Jumanji, like as in being dropped into a video game thing, or
that's
like
the only way I want to see any kind of exploratory or RPG type game. The only way I want to see them is basically the 80s Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. Children, yes. Or different varying types of Jumanji did it brilliantly, even though I didn't like the film. They got a nerd, they got a jock, they got a vain girl, they got a geeky girl, and they sucked them all into the game. I want that for that's what World of Warcraft the movie should have been, and it wasn't. It was a weird retelling of old Warcraft lore.
Yes, which
good film though.
It's okay.
I liked it. There was a Murloc.
Yeah. I didn't ever play World of Warcraft, so I didn't really get any of the references from the film, and I watched a bit of it and went,
I only knew.
Okay.
Yeah. I only knew a little bit like worlds and settings and stuff, not the characters and the overarching lore. And this guy who is a good guy is then going to turn into a bad guy, like that kind of. I didn't know any of that stuff. I just went in and went, this is going to be terrible. Oh, I actually really like this.
Is it?
I can't wait for the sequel.
Is it Steve, the main guy in Minecraft?
Minecraft, yes. Minecraft Steve.
So, do we think he's going to play Steve? Or is it going to be a creeper? And yeah,
no.
What was the Minecraft one with the story thing that they came out with recently as well?
Oh, that was called. Oh, get ready for this. That was called Minecraft Story Mode.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a spin-off game as well? Though?
That was a. Yeah, it was a. Well, there was a. So there's Minecraft.
Yeah.
Then there's the Telltale games called Minecraft Story Mode, which are actually really good games.
Okay.
You don't have to like Minecraft to like those. Patton Oswalt, I think, stars in them.
Right.
And then they made Minecraft Dungeons, I think it was called, which was a Diablo-esque style. Well, Diablo for kids, basically.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if they're going to go with like a riff off that story rather than the not real story in the main game type thing.
No, Jason Momoa is going to be playing Minecraft with his child and then get sucked into the game and... Captain N, the Games Master style, and then become the Minecraft man.
Is it basically the
Jason
Lego movie?
Momoa.
The Lego movie thing, like he's the bad guy that doesn't like the Minecraft, wants to stick all the Minecraft together with glue. And
no, he's going to be the hero. I'm telling you, he's going to get sucked into the game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's all these games need to be.
Good. Aqua Steve.
Sonic game, Sonic movie should have been James Marsden was playing a video game with his son and then got sucked into the game, and now he lives in Sonic.
Have you seen Sonic 2 yet, by the way?
No.
Oh, okay.
We should go see Sonic.
You liked the first one,
You can get over your fear of cinemas, and I can go see Sonic.
Okay. It's a date.
Yeah, the first one was fine.
Yeah, I like the first one.
They didn't release the second... They made the mistake of releasing the second one on April Fool's Day rather than on Valentine's Day like they did with the previous one. So it's really ballsed up our idea to go see it together. Anywho. That is all the news we have for this week. We will have more next week because that's how news works. It kind of cycles each day. Yeah. Other bits before we get out of here, we have the charity spotlight, which we like to talk about video game based charities and shine the spotlight on them in any way we can and get you to either take part or donate or both.
Yep.
Tim, I'm going to give you the floor because it's your favourite. It's good old Geek Out for Gosh.
Back to Geek Out for Gosh. Right, I do have a couple of new ones that I spoke to at WASD, by the way, but I'm awaiting details of exactly when to do that because they've got some particular campaigns that they want us to detail coming up. So we do have a few new charities to add to the mix going forward. But for now, Geek Out for Gosh, for anyone that doesn't know, is a campaign to help raise money for Great Ormond Street Hospital. That is the Gosh in Geek Out for Gosh. Basically, you can just stream and raise some money. There are various different ways that you can get involved. You can stream yourself, or you can sponsor someone else who's doing it, or you can just help spread the word of someone that is streaming and get stuff out there. There have been a few people that have done some really good stuff in this in recent weeks, and I keep on meaning to dig up details and have not done so yet, but still. But yeah, if you want to check out some details, go for Geek Out for Gosh. That's number 4 on Twitter. They are also available on Facebook and a few other things. And you can check out their own website, which is www.gosh.org, and search for Geek Out for Gosh on there as well. We'll also have some links to that in the show notes, courtesy of the lovely Coleman for all the lovely work he does in doing so. So, either if you can't be bothered to retain that information in your head, just look at the show notes and there'll be some more links and stuff there for you to go to.
Show notes. Good. Also, I never tell. I very rarely shine a spotlight on this because I don't want people skipping around. I want them to listen to the whole show. But I will say the show notes, they do. If you pull them up on your phone, like I use Podcast Addict to listen to podcasts, and you look at the show notes and you scroll down and it tells you exactly what's going to be in the show in little nice chapter forms. You can click one of those and it will take you to that point. So if you're like, I'm sick of hearing about Jason Momoa in Minecraft, I'll just skip forward straight to the outro. You can do that. That is allowed. So, yeah. But don't start the show and go, intro.
Let's skip the whole thing.
Straight to the exit. Don't do that. Don't do that.
That is, playing our podcast on like easy mode or hard mode. I'm not sure which one's which, but yeah.
I think that's easy mode. But that kind of ruins our analytics.
Yes.
So please don't do that.
Don't do that, please.
Tim, we have questions, and before we read them, if you want to leave a question or if you want to give some feedback or game suggestions or anything that we should be talking about at all, you can let us know on BigRedBarel.com. That is our website. Over there, we have a comment section. So you can go to this here episode. You can go, I'm going to leave a comment there. That's perfectly fine. You can do that. Or if you fancy, we have a link to our Discord on the front page of BigRedBarel.com. Discord's a very good place to hang out. We have lots of friendly people on there. We talk about lots of things. We have a dedicated Elden Ring page still for some reason where Tim likes to talk about how far he's got in Elden Ring with Kev. I was in there and I fell off because I've got other games to talk about on this show. We have a Facebook and
I'm now, I think, 95 hours into Elden Ring.
Oh.
So, yeah.
That's a lot. I thought it was bad with 60.
What was the last boss I beat? I just beat Bale something shadow thing. Anyway, it was the thing that looked like Blad. I just beat him up, and yeah. Now I'm fighting a massive, stupid cockroach thing that I hate already. Anyway, but yeah.
You and Starter and John.
It is a great game. I'm really loving it still. I'm very many hours into it. The one good thing about WASD especially is it's given me a few weeks where I could talk about stuff that wasn't Elden Ring while still playing lots of Elden Ring. This has been quite good.
Yeah.
I could go to the end game and I still haven't yet. But anyway, but right, yeah. But come and discuss Elden Ring with us. It's a good fun times.
That's our Discord. We have a Facebook and Twitter. You can find us at Big Red Barrel on both of those, and on YouTube, Big Red Barrel TV. Maybe we should change that to Big Red Barrel so it's all uniform. Who knows? I'll get around to it one day.
Yeah.
Probably not today.
No.
So on our Discord, we have Stealthy Joe who asks, he says, I have a question.
Yep.
Should there be an Actors Guild style union for video game staff?
Yes.
Yes and no. There should be any big company should unionize. That you should have a union of some form. The Screen Actors Guild.
Everyone says that, but I kind of think that society in general should do better at protecting all workers, no matter what profession you're in. Like I always kind of think that in some ways, unionizing and doing things is actually counterproductive to what we should do as a collective whole as society. We should hold our political appointees to better account to represent workers in general. Like, politicians should do a better job of representing the entire populace, and they don't do a very good job of that. So it is necessary to have trade unions, but I'd argue that there is a better solution than trade unions in general, possibly. So if you want to get into that thing, that's kind of my general opinion. Yeah. But I kind of see the necessity for trade unions in the world that we live in, but in an ideal world, they shouldn't be necessary either, basically. So yeah.
Yeah. What I would, I mean, yes, I fully agree with what you say, but as of the now, using the systems that we have in place, I would say unionize where you can, especially if you're in a big company. I don't think it should be on the same level as the Screen Actors Guild. That is a completely different kettle of fish.
Yeah, slightly different.
That should be included in voice acting, which I don't know if that is yet. I know we've spoken about this in the past.
I'm not sure they've actually opened it up yet.
There have been a lot of voice actors, not just voice actors, but like the likes of Mark Hamill, who is a actor and voice actor.
Yeah.
Very good, very proficient at both, as argued for the idea of voice actors being included in the Actors Guild. I agree. I don't know if that ever happened. I know we were talking about it, and it seems to have gone dead. Let's hope it did. That should be included, but that's a very different type of system if you look into the two. But yes, unionize on everything you can.
Yeah, and there's a kind of like a rising tide brings up all ships kind of attitude towards that. Is everyone should be behind Amazon workers unionizing, because if they get their wages pulled up, then everyone else around them has to pull their wages up accordingly, and that benefits society as a whole. So even though, as I was saying, I kind of wish that there wasn't a need for unions, as we said, in the present systems there is, and that should benefit everyone as a whole anyway, so everyone should be looking to back those.
He also opines with a second question. He says, also, what is the best glitch you have done? I have glitched almost every game I have played, but one that comes to mind is playing Burnout. After a spectacular crash, it spawned me behind a wall.
Well, I've got a very relevant one to that. And I could go with more Elden Ring stuff, because that is a game, and the whole Souls-like series is almost a game where you want to find the tactic that cheeses a boss as easily as possible, because that is a given way of getting through the game. And I just beat that Baleful Shadow thing by like literally using rotten breath and kind of really cheesing that boss in the end. And I still yelled in victory because I beat him, even though it was like finding a tactic that was. But even more relevant to what he was saying, the best glitch I've ever done, and I have spoken about it before in the past on the podcast. I think it's in the distant past. But in Burnout 2, I was number 2 in the world on the crash junctions that they had there, behind one tricksy American who I swear was a pool of people all getting together and doing it. But anyway, I was number 2 in the world. I think my flatmate was number 4 and our friend was number 6. And basically there was a bug in that game where you could get, where if you crash in a particular way and you had to kind of approach it in a particular way and do certain things, that you could get the trucks to crunch in a particular way that they would then flip out. And literally that flip would then send all of the traffic flying off in a direction and get you a huge score. And literally it was finding all the different levels where they had the big articulated lorries that you could get to flip in that way, and then getting them to flip. And that is definitely the best glitch that I've done, because it got me to number 2 in the world on Burnout Crash Junctions on the scoreboard. So yeah, like that's definitely my one.
I think I've spoken about this one a couple of times on the show, but Little Big Planet on the PlayStation 3. If you look at my trophies, if you went on my profile and looked at my trophies, I have the platinum for Little Big Planet, the first Little Big Planet game. I have not completed Little Big Planet. It randomly popped partway through a level, just around like level 2 or 3. So I never felt the need to go through and try and platinum the game because I'd already done it by accident. So I have the
that's
platinum
pretty good.
trophy for Little Big Planet. One of my favorite glitches, though, just because of the outcome of it, was I was at before it was EGX and it was still Eurogamer Expo at Earl's Court. May it rest in peace. I was playing the reboot of Tomb Raider, the 2013, I think it was, that game came out on the 360, and I going through the early levels, and this was at that point where they were trying to sell the game on, it was a survival game, you're going to hunt for your food and all this kind of stuff, and then when the actual game came out, you do it once in the tutorial and you never do it again. I'd killed the deer with a bow and arrow, and then I cooked it at a campfire, and then I went off to play the game, and then as I approached like this little section you had to crawl through, Lara just T-posed and floated about a foot off the air, and that was it for the game. And I was laughing my head off, and I took a couple of photos. And as I was walking away, a very large security man stopped me and made me pull up the photos on my phone and delete them. So that's probably my favorite glitch, just because it was funny. Glitches. Ed, our good friend Ed, friend of the show, Ed. We should get him back on soon. He's asked a few questions. We'll see if we can get through these. He has asked, with the Unreal Engine being technically impressive, but not very fun to play through, how would you spice up your time in the Matrix/Unreal 5 demo?
I mean, I basically went, okay, the best bit of this was the first 5 minutes. I'm going to quit now. So I guess play the first 5 minutes again is the best answer to that, possibly.
Well, I mean, if I was to somehow change the demo to spice it up, if I could be French and invent some kind of cake that when you ate the cake, especially... No, wait, I won't go into that.
I think it would have been good if they'd have added some sort of destructible environments and you could have triggered that destruction somehow, possibly.
That open world really chugs at points. I don't think destructible environments are the way forward to improve that. That impressive thing is the opening of the game and not the actual open world section of the game. I mean, playing around with shaders and stuff, that's fun if you've got a technical mind for that stuff.
Yeah, I think we said at the mind
as an average gamer.
I think we said at the time, that's not great for the average gamer, but I think there are developers that would have been wowed by that. But for us, it's a bit like, I'm glad they put the thing at the beginning, because otherwise there wasn't much to this, basically.
Here's a good one. He asks us a second question.
Ooh,
Do you think that the next big issue with gaming is going to be its environmental impact? With more people talking about the harmful impact of plastics and thus the impact of physical editions and energy consumption of NFTs and Bitcoin being a big issue, will we likely have the same conversations when the 4000 NVIDIA series might have a massive power consumption demands to catch up with the full potential of the Unreal Engine 5?
Okay. Yeah, I hadn't really thought
kind of
about
links into the first one.
The implications of the technology needed to run Unreal Engine 5 properly. And I think there is a problem generally with people getting access to PS5s and Xbox Series X because they can't make enough of them, partly because of NFTs. Now, I'm really hoping that the news this week that the NFT of Jack's, Jack Dorsey, is it? The founder of Twitter, like the person that bought the NFT of his original tweet for $3 million, tried to sell it and came up nearly $3 million short. I think it was like $4,000 basically. I'm hoping
they were a good 2 months out from doing that.
Yeah, I'm hoping that is a massive nail in the coffin for NFTs. And I think that's one of the things that hopefully like Team 17 got an absolute pasting and turned around very quickly on their announcement of NFTs. Like, gamers are not taking well to NFTs, and I think that's something that is definitely, hopefully, vanishing from the gamer sphere. I can see some people trying to push that. I don't know if you saw that. I saw a report this week that games that had NFT technology, and in particular, what's the NFT JPEG thing, like the visual picture thing for NFTs?
What, like Bored Apes?
Yes, those sort of things.
Yeah, I don't know what the actual name for it is.
But the games that involve NFT technologies and like Bitcoin stuff apparently they're getting hacked the almighty crap out of, and that's becoming a massive security issue for any game that's
Oh damn! I've got to save my apes.
yeah, that's having that technology put into it. And like I can't pretend to be upset about that. I'm afraid that's a good thing as far as anything that puts off people from doing this. Please stop doing it. I really hope the whole Bitcoin thing crashes, and the whole NFT crashes. Like, there has been several high-profile things of like cryptocurrency stuff just generally, the heads of companies disappearing with all the passwords. Very serious problems that people hadn't thought about when the technology was introduced. It's decentralizing, and democratizing currencies and taking away from America's cracked down on all the cryptocurrency stuff as well, and there are very many problems that people haven't thought about and thought through about not having a central thing to be able to check if someone has stolen all your money, basically. There is a good thing that you can go, no, someone stole all the money from my bank account. Please look into this, please. That is a good thing. Like, having police on this thing is a good thing. Not giving free access to horrible people to be able to move their money around freely is a good thing. I'm not saying there aren't plus points to cryptocurrencies, but I don't think the people that thought them as a general good thing necessarily thought about all the bad aspects of them. And I think a lot of those things are coming home to roost. The quicker all of this dies, the better for video games. We don't want NFTs in our video games, but I also think for PC gamers, but also for people still trying to get their hands on PS5s and Xbox Series X's, it will be a good thing if cryptocurrency completely and utterly fails, basically. So the sooner that happens, the better for the environment and the better things are. In terms of the actual environmental impact for running Unreal Engine 5, I don't know that that's going to be as big an issue as NFTs and cryptocurrencies have been in general. I think they are a much bigger problem because of the whole data mining and the whole kind of energy input that you need to do that. And there has been a lot of talk of moving on to less environmental impact for cryptocurrencies. That hasn't come to fruition yet. And everyone that's tried it has failed so far. And I can't remember the actual terminology for it, but it's something like, I can't remember. So I'll give it. But yeah, like that just hasn't come to fruition yet. It hasn't come to thing. The quicker all this dies, the better it will be for all video gamers, I think. And I don't think the actual genuine running of something like Unreal Engine 5 will be as big an issue as we already have with cryptocurrencies and NFTs. So the quicker those die, the better for everyone else.
I've forgotten what I was going to say, so I'll just say, I've been hacked, all my apes gone.
Mm-hmm.
This just sold, please help me.
Oh no, all apes gone. But
all apes gone.
Bored apes no longer.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember that? I think there is a bigger issue with banks in power, and that is a completely different conversation not to be had on a video games podcast. However, much like my argument for AR is, I do think that crypto could be a future in some format, just not this format.
Yeah.
This is the wrong format to be using and to push it. NFTs are a scam. NFTs are pushed by people that the only way they are going to make money through NFTs is by making other people buy NFTs.
Yes,
and
it's a horrible pyramid scheme.
Started and inflated and has now popped, as we see, people buying these stupid apes for thousands and thousands of dollars and only getting hundreds in return.
Yeah.
It's lowering down.
Mm-hmm.
There is money to be made in crypto in some form, but at what cost?
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. We will see how that has a change on the games industry. Like I say, when there was the whole argument from Ubisoft going, oh, we're going to do this whole thing where, can you imagine if you had a game in Ghost Recon, you could transfer that game to, I don't know, what Ubisoft do, Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
That gun could be in Assassin's Creed and you could transfer it over, and there's no other way you could do that without crypto.
Yes,
there is. You don't have to have the blockchain. Ubisoft are the biggest pusher of this before crypto, before Ethereum, before blockchain anyway. Ubisoft Club allows you to pick up DLC based on the games you have played.
Yeah.
You know, EA go, hey, have you been playing this game? Well, we'll reward you with this gun or this weapon in that game or this costume in that game. Ubisoft do it. EA do it. Activision do it. I've seen it done a million times. And now suddenly we're meant to believe that technology has never existed and can only exist if you attach it to the blockchain. No, it's just a thing that happened. Lots of money is to be made out of it. And therefore their shareholders are going, well, this is a buzzword we've heard. How do we involve that in games? Can you involve that in games? Otherwise, we're pulling out.
I mean, if blockchain does see the death of things like Ubisoft Club and all those sorts of services, then, I mean, maybe it's worth the planet being set on fire. I don't know. Like, the Ubisoft Club's pretty terrible and all those sort of ancillary service things
I don't mind
anyway.
Ubisoft Club so much.
It's fine if you automatically tie it to my PlayStation account or my Xbox account. Where I have a big problem with it was every different publisher wants to have their own, like Squeenix did it with Outriders and a few other things. Like, if I have to sign into a different bloody service every time I'm signing into a different console with a different game, no, screw you guys. No.
They've changed a lot of that now, too.
Yes.
They've changed a lot of that.
Yeah, that all needs to go away anyway.
Basically, you sign into it once on your console, and then
they send you a picture of a poor monkey smoking a cigarette. Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, I think the issue we had is they would send us like a beta code and go, right, you need to redeem this on our website, and you go, oh, how the hell do I log into that? Because I've only ever done this through the PlayStation or the Xbox. How does this work on a PC or on my mobile phone? God help me, where I haven't stored any password. You know, I think a lot of that's changed now. They've been a bit more lenient with the way things work on those things. But yeah. Anywho, Ed, we're going to skip over your third question for the next week because we are way, way over. I can hear Dan screaming at me all the way from Slough.
And we kind of covered that one a bit already, but yeah.
Yeah. I was going to go on a whole tangent about how we used to have like plastic peripherals in Guitar Hero and Rock Band and all those kind of things. And that's all seen the way of the dinosaur. Mm-hmm. Speaking of dinosaurs, fossil fuels, and I was going to go on a whole thing. We'll leave it because we just spoke about.
But that's one thing. Just saying, generally, digital games and that being a future is better than physical games, especially with the plastic boxes in being the main thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember a point. Oh, this is the 360 era. My brother, not knowing what to get me one Christmas, bought me Microsoft points when they were still points. And the Microsoft points came on a credit card sized piece of Microsoft cardboard, prizes. which you'd scratch off and get a code and you'd type that in. Now, I've got no problem with that. What I had a problem with was they put this in a DVD size, Xbox sized custom plastic case, which you take off the cellophane. Okay, that's cellophane there. Some microplastic there. Yeah. And then you've got this case and you go, right, well, maybe I can use this for storing games. No, because it's a special thing that just has a section for a card. So once you're done with it, it goes in the bin.
It has to go in the bin. It takes away the whole point,
To this day, one of the most wasteful things I've ever seen in video games. That and any Ubisoft Special Edition big bumper box of whatever, with a big resin stinky statue of Aiden Pierce or whatever they're trying to shill out this time with their 20 million versions. I'm doing it again. I said we were getting out of here. I'm going to get on a tangent. If you have enjoyed yourself listening to this here podcast, God help you, you got some weird old problems. However, we'd like to hear that you enjoyed this podcast. Yes, and even if you did enjoy this podcast and wrote out some kind of review in the past, maybe you want to update that podcast. Maybe you want to say in your review, take off John, add in Coleman, or take out Mighty Mutt, add in Tim, something like that. Update it.
We deserve an update.
You can do so.
Coleman deserves an update.
We would like reviews on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Stitcher, anywhere you can leave a podcast review. Yes. You could probably leave one in the very app you're listening to the show on. So that would be great if you could do so. And we read those and we take them into consideration. We take them to the heart in a lot of cases. Unless you say something nasty. And then I read them and delete them and don't tell Tim about the nasty things that have been said about. I know we do. We make fun of you behind the scenes. It's all fun and games. Anyway, this has been BRB episode 487. See, I knew that because I corrected the episode number at the start of this podcast. I didn't plan an outro. We're going to listen to Crazy Taxi on the way out instead. No, we're not. No, because that's going to be hard for monetizing reasons. We're going to have Jet Set Radio music on the outro.
That's good.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Good.
I that's one of the only soundtracks I've ever had on an iPod, basically. Going back a bit with an iPod. But I love the soundtrack to that game. It was great. It's on my Spotify.
I used to listen to the Katamari soundtrack quite a lot. I was, I'll tell you this, I was in the perfect soundtrack for the gym. I was listening to the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater soundtrack in the gym today.
Nice.
However, if you're on elliptical and Superman by Goldfeed just starts going off, you could kill yourself. You gotta be careful trying to keep on time with the beat. Anywho. Hopefully Dan's back next week. I think he might be off next week as well. I'll have to converse with him in the background. But either way, this has been episode 487 of BRB UK. I have been Coleman.
I might have been Tim.
And we will be back some form next week. Thank you very much for listening. If you've been watching, thank you very much for watching. But until next time, dear listeners, goodbye.
Most disturbing.
You and your ears are quite welcome for the podcasting goodness that you just heard. Why not roll on over to BigRedBarel.com for more podcasts, news, reviews, and videos from the biggest, reddest site on the internet, BigRedBarel.com.
Television on a game called Games World.
That wasn't where I was going, but thank you, Coleman, for eat my dust. Yes, no, eating. You'll be eating my dust. Eating my dust. Not eat my dust. Eating my dust. All right.
Eating my dust.
Thank you, Coleman.